I think in the last 15 years, even since I've been in the industry, we've seen this shift from just investment management or financial planning to really more of a holistic view of your wealth life.
Every week on More Than Profit, we explore the stories of leaders, entrepreneurs, and investors who have made a difference in the world while building successful businesses. We sit down with each guest and dive into their personal journey, their struggles and triumphs, and the lessons they've learned along the way. On this episode, we sit down with Laura Combs, who has been recognized by the Thrive Awards, named a top woman advisor by Forbes, and a top 40 under 40 advisor by Investment News. Laura sits on the steering committee for Mercer Advisors' award-winning Investors Women's Initiative, is a member of the Financial Planning Association, mentors through Mercer's mentorship program, and the Leeds Professional Mentorship Program at the University of Colorado. All that to say, Laura knows what she is talking about when it comes to financial planning and the purpose of money in everyday life. Her perspective on money as a tool to realize your own personal values and goals is what truly sets her apart. Not only that, she has an equal passion as well for inspiring women towards confidence in their own financial decision-making, as the capital controlled by women in our culture has taken a sharp turn for the better over the last few decades.
So growing up, I didn't really learn finances from anybody. I think there's a myth out there that they teach this stuff in school. And so growing up, I never had a class. My parents, great parents, but that was not something we really talked. We didn't talk about budgeting. We didn't talk about investing. It was something I kind of just learned along the way. Brian, what about you? Did you have anybody, how did you learn about finances?
Yeah. So I got my first job. So I, like Laura, like our guest today, I was a communication major with a religious studies minor. I was going places, and I did not know that how much taxes were taken out. So my first paycheck I was married. I ended up having to get a second job because I was not making enough money. And then I always saved only because my boss sat me down, but I had no, I had no education at all. And it was I'm 55 years old, and I still, our guest today has written an article that I read, and to my shame, I'm like, fuck, I don't know if I'm doing everything that she's saying to do. And so yeah, I don't want to actually do this interview, but yeah. But anyway, so no, I'm like you. I've made money. I've lost money.
Stumbled forward. Yeah.
Yeah. Stumbled forward is such a good word, Bryce. Stumbled forward.
Laura, where did you learn? Obviously you're a financial planner and you help with wealth management and different things, but where did you learn financial literacy growing up?
Growing up, to me, my parents spent a lot of time really instilling in me the value of money, the value of saving, the value of understanding what you have and being able to give from what you have, even if it's a small amount or a large amount. And not having a lot of money growing up really forced me to think through kind of what money meant to me and how to manage it well. I just remember my parents sitting down with me talking about, the B word, budgeting, from a really young age. And I worked, Brian, like you were saying, first job, Bryce, first job, I worked from the time I was, 12, 14, babysitting, working at the local pool, and always being able to think through, hey, where's this money going? But it wasn't until I kind of fell into finance that I really got passionate about helping other people learn what to do with their money. Because like you both said, it's like nobody really talked about it, no class in high school. So now I'm super passionate about trying to educate people from a young age to make sure that they make good choices about money.
We've always taught our kids to save, give, those kind of things. But what age do you think, what age do you start doing that with kids?
I mean, I've been doing it with my girls. My oldest is 9. My second oldest is 7. They both have little jobs that they are entrepreneurs themselves. And so from the time they wanted to buy something in the store, if we were at the grocery store and they wanted to purchase something, that's when we started talking about it. So when they were 4 or 5 years old, wanted a little candy at the checkout, I told them, next time you got to bring your wallet. You got to start bringing your own money. That young age is the perfect time, just instilling that idea.
So how did you go from, Wheaton College and a degree in communication to the finance space? Like what was the jump there for you?
Let me tell you what I read online about Laura Combs. That she started out as a temp job and then fell into this job. So that
Well,
that
there you
actually
go.
came off her 40 under 40 because she's on that list too. But I just thought, yeah. So tell us that story.
Well, and Brian, I love that you say that because I often use that same phrase. I fell into finance. And growing up, like we talked about, I was always intrigued by money, but I always had to earn my own money. No one was handing me money. So I always had to figure it out on my own. And, I had this plan of communication going into something really cool and sexy like marketing, advertising. And it was the Great Recession. It was 2008. And, I had a consulting job lined up and that got put on hold. So being kind of the entrepreneur I am at heart, I had to do something. I had to get a job. And so was able to jump in through some connections, through some networking, got a job as a temp at Mercer Advisors, and just fell in love with the financial planning industry, fell in love with helping people every single day figure out what to do with their money.
So I just want to go back for a second. Did your parents have wealth?
Growing up, no, I wouldn't say so. My dad was a pastor. My mom stayed at home, and they always had enough. We always had enough. I never, wanted, but they were very intentional with how they saved their money, and they're in a great position today.
Because the reason I asked that is I like you, didn't have, like my parents didn't give me things. I worked and had a job. I mean, I was mowing lawns in 6th grade and had 2 or 3 people working for me and all those things. But my parents were poor. So that's why they didn't hand me anything, because they just didn't. I mean, they gave me everything they had, but they just didn't. They were just working people, and so yeah. So that's why, because I do find it interesting going now, knowing you and Marty. I do think it'll be interesting. How do you continue that on with your kids? Because probably like a lot of the listeners here, you've accumulated great wealth. Well, I don't know that for sure, but I just knowing you and Marty, you guys have accumulated wealth, and you just go, how do you raise your kids to be mindful, when you have surplus and those things?
Well, and Laura, what do you think about, so I think there's a debate, and I'm curious your opinion around allowance for kids, and I've got, obviously there's things my wife and I do. And I think with technology, it makes kind of the give, save, spend, invest so much more accessible for young people. Things like we use Greenlight at home with our kids. So they get a debit card and there's a way for them to kind of, figure out where to put their money and where their money is, and that kind of get permission to move their money and set savings goals and those types of things. But I'm curious, how do you think about that stuff? What do you do maybe even at home, or what do you recommend to clients as they think about allowance? I know there's a lot of opinions out there about it.
Yeah. I think it's, again, coming back to like having those conversations really early. We do have allowance for our kids, and the allowance is their small amount every week that they get. Like you, Bryce, we've got, they've got a debit card. Our expectation is really that they participate and they contribute to our family through, weekly chores, through helping with dinner, through, a lot of different things that we do throughout the week. That's kind of our expectation for their contribution to the family. And from an allowance standpoint, that's, so they're able to kind of start managing their own money. We also give them the opportunity to earn more money if they want to go above and beyond kind of what our general line expectation is. And then like you, they bring their debit card, or they bring a couple dollars, to church. They make their give to the church or give to an organization, and then they can spend the rest. My oldest daughter wanted to buy this bunny, so she set a savings goal on her little app as well, and tried to do all these other jobs and got people to fund that. So we're trying to do the same thing there, but it's the idea of, if you want to buy it, bring your own money. And they really have actually, it's interesting to see the ownership that they've taken at such a young age.
Well, I wish I knew that she wanted to buy a bunny, because I invested in Bryce's daughter's bunny, and I would have invested in your daughter's bunny also. But yeah, so if there's people that want to buy bunnies, I'm an investor.
He's an investor in bunnies. Well, that's one of my friends. They don't do allowance. They don't believe in it. But what they'll do is they'll invest in their kids' business idea. And so, for the summer, it might be set up a garden, and then they go door to door and they sell the produce. And so they'll invest and buy the seeds and pay for those things to try to teach them. But they're like, we don't do allowance. The things they do around the house are just them being a part of so I'm always fascinated how different people think about it. We do an allowance, especially when they're younger. And I think it's a helpful way for them to at least understand money and how it's, that they can't buy everything. They can't walk into a store and get everything. So
unless I'm with them, I will buy them things. I love buying Bryce's kids things.
I was really super excited to chat with you because I think one of the things as I've followed you online and some of the things that I've seen, you're really passionate about helping women specifically figure out financial planning goals. We'll put the article in the show notes that you wrote specifically around the statistics, but I'd love for you to share a little bit about why you think that's such an important thing that we focus on as households, as a community, as a nation, as we think about women as decision makers with capital and how that's been ignored, I think, for decades. And right now we're kind of seeing a moment where we really need to focus in on how we think about specifically helping women understand capital and understand investing and putting plans into place. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that and kind of where you are thinking in that space right now.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting conversation, the last 10, 20 years as we've seen more women come into the business space. Historically, the reason it's such a moment is I think historically a lot of men made decisions around money. However, what we've often seen is that women made the decisions day to day. And so we're seeing this shift where women didn't maybe have as much confidence in getting invested or working with a financial advisor or picking stocks or something like that. And so there was kind of this hesitancy or lack of education, lack of awareness around how to get started. And so we saw a lot of just kind of a gap there. And so I'm incredibly passionate about just making women feel comfortable having those conversations around money. What is an investment? Being able to have access to female advisors, if that's what they're more comfortable with, and being able to just have those conversations around what's important to them about money, what they want to do with the money, and being able to have that, in partnership if they're married with their spouse. And so we're just seeing a big shift. Women are controlling more and more of the global money flow. And so we'll start to see that over, as the average age of widowhood in the US is 59. And that's a big shift. We're going to see this huge flow. We already are seeing this into women and wanting to make sure they feel comfortable because there's another statistic out there. It's almost, I think, north of 90% that if a spouse dies, the woman will change advisors. She will leave her husband's advisor, go to a different advisor. So there's just a lot of opportunity for women to get in the game. And I think women are excited to really start having control of their money and being able to be educated around it.
And are you seeing, and I'm sure the answer is yes, and I'm just curious what the trends are, but as women are stepping into more of the decision-making role related to money and capital flows, are you seeing a change in focus, whether that's stocks they're interested in or types of funds or different strategies? Are you seeing a diversification there, if you will, related to how women think about where the money should go and how the money should be invested? And are you seeing time horizon shifts as well as they think about like how long that money is put out there and the return expectations, or is it pretty much the same?
I think we're seeing a trend with women and then also with younger investors, maybe millennials or Gen Z, where we're seeing a focus on really wanting investments to align with their values. So female investors, younger investors are wanting to make sure that their money is doing good in the world, right? It's kind of this idea of having that value component, making sure that your money aligns with what you're passionate about. I would say women, we are seeing a trend in that direction more so than men. I think men would still say bottom line, just want the return, regardless of if it's a good or bad company, for example. And so that's where I would say the trend has shifted, not necessarily on risk, although we are seeing women take on more risk now, being more educated around the risk and return relationship.
And so for you as a wealth advisor, what does that look like? How do you, because now, it used to be a pretty sleepy, a seemingly sleepy industry because you had your funds, you pushed your clients towards that. But I think with technology and access to information, you have a lot more curious, I think, and educated people that want value alignment. So what does that look like for the role of the advisor? Like, how have you seen your role shift or just the industry at large shift as you think about like providing better services to your clients, whether that's products or managers? Has that increased your workload? Has that changed it any as you think about just the energy at large?
I think in the last 15 years, even since I've been in the industry, we've seen this shift from just investment management or financial planning to really more of a holistic view of your wealth life. If you think about everything that has a dollar sign, your taxes, your estate plan, your insurance, all of those components, that's where we're seeing investors really want more of the total view of everything versus kind of siloed just with the investments or just with financial planning. And that's, I think, where the industry is trending is your advisor, your wealth advisor will be able to, it'll be like a family office for your family, for every family versus just investment management, which is really what I'm excited about. And I think it makes it, I think it actually, if we think about the health of your financial life, it makes sense, right? You have everybody, one person looking at all those components versus you're a stock picker, not talking to your CPA, not talking to your attorney. That's where I see the industry going. It's providing more services. It's evolving to make sure that we're meeting those needs of clients as the technology and everything's catching up.
Yeah. Well, and I think you've been in it for 15 years, and obviously you're passionate about kind of the education space around this. But at the end of the day, what, in your perspective, why does all of this matter? Like, what is the purpose of wealth, and why should more people be thinking about this from a holistic perspective? Beyond just the fact that it's money and people want more of it, everybody, why should this matter for families? And then why should we care? Financial literacy education is pretty much non-existent as we think about young people in America.
It's a great question to think about, do we just build more wealth? I think to me, it comes down to, and the reason I'm so passionate is it's providing people peace of mind. I don't know about Brian, Bryce. There's probably never a time in your life that you're worried about money, right? You guys have never worried about money, I'm sure. When we think about all of our, working with clients, it's like all of us have worried about money. And that's why I'm so passionate about this is to get people to a spot where regardless of if they have what might be considered a little bit of wealth or might be considered a lot of wealth, getting them peace of mind so that they are not worried about money. And they can do the things that they want. They can have legacy. They can have experiences with their family. That's the goal. That's the end game for me with working with clients. And I think it's going to, if we shift to, Bryce, your second question around the financial literacy, I mean, it's starting even younger. I'm working on some content right now where we're really looking at elementary, middle school, high school age articles, curriculum. How do you start getting kids excited about money? And we're seeing some games come in the industry. I know one of our friends is putting something together right now too, just different things to get kids more educated because there's a lot of traps. I mean, we see people make bad decisions with money because they don't know. And that's why I'm excited to see the education piece really coming in. But I think it needs to start at a younger age, which is what we're trying to do.
On Thursday afternoon in March of 2022, Jamie Cantor, a vet tech and animal lover, was in a fender bender. Although she initially felt only a bit of soreness, the pain rapidly worsened over the next few days. She eventually went to the ER, where doctors told her that if they didn't operate soon, she might lose her ability to walk. After the surgery, Jamie's slow recovery made work difficult, and it was even harder to make ends meet. Then her medical bill arrived, and she was shocked to find that it totaled over $43,000. Fortunately, Jamie learned about a new free initiative called $4 that helps people navigate the confusing process of charity care. She reached out to them and they immediately responded and offered to submit all of the necessary paperwork for her to apply for financial assistance. A few months later, Jamie received an adjusted medical bill. The total owed was now only $1,300 instead of $43,000. Over $40,000 of her debt had been completely eliminated thanks to the work of $4. To remain tax exempt, nonprofit hospitals must offer financial assistance programs to low to middle income patients. But with little federal oversight of these programs, most hospitals do the bare minimum to educate patients about them, which means patients don't receive the financial assistance they should. In 2021 alone, hospitals reaped $17 billion in tax benefits from their nonprofit status, most of which should have gone to charity care or community investment. There are millions of people in the U.S. like Jamie Cantor who carry an unfair financial burden due to medical costs. $4 is working to crush medical bills by making charity care known, easy, and fair. To date, $4 has eliminated over $20 million of medical debt, and they aren't stopping anytime soon. If you or someone you know are facing medical debt and don't know where to start in applying for financial assistance, check out $4.org today. And now back to the episode.
I think that one of the problems too that I see right now is just we're at a crazy high personal debt load, corporate debt load, personal debt load, national debt load. It's pretty staggering when you think about the amount of credit card debt that individuals have in America. And then you layer on top of that, the interest rates for cars right now are through the roof, mortgages, which is why I think a lot of people are scared about the state of the economy and where money is. And that also, when you think about financial literacy and the importance of that, it's because young people are growing up in this world where debt is so normative, where you just put things on credit cards and you hope and pray that sometime in the future, you're going to be able to pay that off. So where do you think, as you're talking with clients or even in your own personal life, what should the right role of debt be as we think about planning, as we think about our lives? Where is debt appropriate and where should people really think twice about what they're doing with it?
I think debt is an amazing tool, but like any other tool, if I don't use my hammer correctly, I'm going to get injured. And if I think about debt as a tool, if it's used correctly, it can be really powerful. If it's misused, you're going to end up in trouble. And I think that there's some camps out there where like debt is bad, don't use debt. And I'm not in that camp. I grew up in that camp a little bit, but I've come a long way. And so I think about debt as it's a tool that if it's used correctly, it's a really great piece of leverage. I use debt in my own life, but it's understanding the balance and being able to not over leverage yourself in a situation. And that's where I think, like what you referenced, Bryce, with, society today, people are trying to keep up with this certain standard of lifestyle, where it's a new car, it's a new house, it's whatever it might be, that they are living beyond their means. And that's, I think, a concept that as society, we've really gotten away from, is being able to live within your means or live below your means in order to give or save and be able to do that. So I think debt is, again, I'm a big fan of debt when used correctly. And that if it's not used correctly, it can be incredibly detrimental, which is what you described.
What I really am curious too, and we're going to kind of just flip gears here a little bit, because you're so passionate about this and you've been in the industry for 15 years. Like you said, you kind of fell into it. But I really want to get to understand a little bit about some of the drivers in your earlier life. Obviously, you went to college with a plan. You went to Wheaton College, got a degree in communication, thought you were going to go into marketing and business consulting, doing something differently. But even before that, I'm sure your parents were a huge influence on you. But what would you say were some of the formative experiences, whether they were good or bad, in your life that kind of help shape who you are as a person? Because what you exude is confidence, intelligence, passion. And so those are amazing qualities. And I'm just curious where those came from in your life.
So growing up, like I shared a little bit, but our family didn't have a lot. And I found myself, if I wanted something, I had to work for it and I had to go out and do that. And I really enjoyed working. I really enjoyed connecting with people. I enjoyed earning money. I enjoyed saving money. I enjoyed, just interacting with people through business opportunities. And so that to me was something that I think really got me excited about business, excited about investing, communication, just from that young age of having to kind of come up with my own wealth if I wanted to do certain things, if I wanted to go on a trip, if I wanted to buy something that was maybe outside of what my parents could afford, I had to figure that out. And so I often, use this saying with my teams, it's like, just figure it out, just go for it and figure it out. And that, I think, mindset was really integral for me. I also was very involved in sports. And so a very competitive person, liked to win, liked to be in the game, liked to compete. And so I think those experiences of competition and having to really work incredibly hard at something in order to excel, that I think was incredibly formative for how I've been and how I've approached business and leadership and where I am today, is working with those teams, working through a competitive situation in order to come out on top.
And so now, beyond just, obviously you work with clients, but you're not just a wealth advisor, you are the managing director of your office. Like you run a substantial team. So I'm just curious, as a leader too, what are some things that you're learning as you lead other people on your team? What are some ways that you meet their needs that are non-financial? what gets you excited as you think about leading your team, and how are you motivated in the kind of the people culture dynamics in your office in Boulder?
I love teams. I love leadership. I'm now overseeing our national wealth management team, which is an incredibly exciting opportunity. So I'm getting to work with a lot of new people that I'm not familiar with. I haven't built that team. So for me in leadership, I love connecting with people and seeing where they are and then seeing where they want to go, Bryce and Brian. It's like being able to help them connect the dots and get them there faster through coaching, through mentorship, through sometimes pushing them, a little bit harder than maybe they're comfortable with, getting them to a spot where then they are excelling where they are. So again, not non-financial, but just like in their own life and career. That's really what gets me excited, is working with those individuals. And so I think that's what I'm loving doing right now. I'm just incredibly passionate about people. I mean, it goes back to the communication degree. I love working with people, love connecting, just love seeing people really excel at where they want to be.
So Laura, how do you think through life-work balance? Like, how do you think through going, you're managing, you're doing those things. I know you love to ski, you love doing, those other things. Well, and I know you're getting your MBA right now, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, again, too much, but maybe not. So how do you do that? Like, how do you recharge? How do you, care for yourself? I mean, obviously care for your family, care for, your employees. Like, how do you stay healthy and all that?
It's a great question, Brian. And I would say it's a seasonal thing for me. I mean, I go through seasons of where I'm really doing a heavy workload at work, but being able to recognize that and kind of be able to carve time out and come off of that. So for me, it's this idea of like, when I'm working, I'm working really hard. When I'm home, I'm with the family. I'm with the kids. I'm not on my phone, on my computer a whole lot during the evenings, because that's my time with my kids. I try to weave in things. So when I think about having a family, when people ask me, when do you ski? When do you do this? It's like the family's skiing. If that's our thing, we're going to go do that. The kids come, we have a great time. And even, just yesterday, I'm like, I needed to get some exercise, needed to get outside. I just grab a couple of the kids and we go for a quick walk, quick hike. And so just trying to incorporate family with what I'm doing in order to recharge kind of helps, I think, keep that balance and be able to fit it all in.
And do you have like a timeline for your seasons? Because like for me, it was always like, I never went longer than a year. Like if I had to build a business or something, I would say to Laura, I need 365 days. And at the end of that, if, I was still traveling 3-4 nights a week or whatever, that just wasn't going to fly long term. And so do you set parameters of going, this season is going to be obviously with your MBA, you have however long, or how do you think through setting, like guardrails?
Yeah. So, I mean, the MBA is a great example right now. I mean, I'm in the middle of it. I'm entering my second year of a 2-year program. What Marty and I have just said is, I travel once a month to the program. And so during the week, I'm really trying to minimize travel or company events at night, so that if I'm traveling for the MBA, I'm not traveling a bunch or doing a lot of events at night that pull me away from the family. So things like that, where I'm trying to limit certain engagements during this season in order to not overdo it. That's the risk, is that, I overdo it or anybody overdoes it. And that's where we see problems arise. But trying to get those date nights in, or trying to get, time with my husband, time with the kids, and just weave that into normal life is to me what I'm trying to focus on during this season.
I got to ask you about ESG. I got to ask you, when you talk about value alignment and investing, how do you think about that as you're advising your clients, but then also how do you steer them in kind of that murky water? Because it's hyper politicized right now. Republicans are against it. Democrats are for it. It's pretty squishy. It's been a developing industry, if you will, for probably the last 20 years, kind of while you've been in the wealth management space. So I'm just curious your hot take on that, because I think there's a lot of push right now to kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater as it's kind of being formed and shaped, so to speak. So how do you think about that?
Yeah, I've looked at ESG investing probably for the last 10 years, and it's become more available, and there wasn't as much of a premium to get into it today as there was years ago. What I really think about is, you're right, Bryce. you hear the word ESG, some people either love it or they hate it, right? You're either going to win people over or you're going to offend people. And so what I really try to think about is talking with clients, talking with individuals around, are there certain things that you are passionate about including in your investment portfolio or excluding in your investment portfolio? And so if I approach it in a way of, again, what's important to you and your family, and do you want those values, do you want those to be reflected in your investment portfolio? Some people say, yeah, sign me up. And they might be, whatever side of the aisle, they might be like, yeah, great, sign me up for that. And some people are, I don't care. What I really do is if there are issues, if there are certain industries or certain companies that people want to include or exclude, we do that in a really custom way where we go through kind of a screen process of 20 plus screens to say, Bryce, do you want to include these? Yes or no? And be able to customize it. So people do feel good or, about if they are really passionate about something, they either have it or don't. So I try not to really push from a lens of ESG, but more, how do we align this with your values?
And would you say most of your clients are interested, or would you say it's split down the middle? Because I find it interesting. Publicly, a lot of my conversations have been very, yes, people are, wanting to, and then privately, people are like, yeah, I don't really care. I mean, it's just been interesting. Do you find more people are interested or not? I mean, because you're having real conversations with people.
I would say it's still a minority of people. I think it's a smaller percentage that feel really, really strongly about it. I think there's still a lot of people that could go either way with it.
I think the thing that's fascinating to me, just kind of pulling one of the comments you made earlier about debt being a tool, I think we've kind of lost sight of that money, when you boil it all down, is still a tool. It's a tool to achieve your personal and family and community objectives. And there's different tools in that toolbox. But so when I think about ESG and the thing that kind of, it's really kind of what you said. It's really, how do we talk about more, what are the values you care about? And let's orient around that. And ESG is a way for people, it's a manifestation of that, where people are trying to say, hey, here are values I care about, and here's a way to kind of allocate and align my capital, specifically in public equities, with those values. That's what I think is so wild to me, is like, here we are in our day and age where aligning a person's values with the tools and the resources to manifest that in the world is so politicized. I mean, that's what I'm like, I don't care right or left. I want to see more people think deeply about who they are and what they want in the world, and then to use money to help manifest that in the world. That's what I'm personally passionate about. And I love how your orientation is more, let's just sit down and talk with you about, okay, what do you care about? What do you not care about? What do you not like? And what do you not want to see your money go towards? And let's kind of have that conversation. So that's a helpful way of framing it.
So Laura, I love getting to close out when it's someone I know well. I just look at you as a human and I go, you are incredible. I mean, just your focus and your passion. And then just even like, I didn't know you were in school, but it didn't surprise me. And I just go, so you're 2 years in. And again, I just look at how I do get excited. I mean, one of the quotes that I wrote down that you just said, I want to create opportunities for women because I'm the mother of 4 daughters and I want them to have great career path choices. And I go, I'm a father of 4 daughters and I want that for my kids. And I really watch you going, people talk about it, but there's people that do it. And I go, you're really a doer. But in that, I just go, you just exude such joy while you do it.
Thanks for listening to this episode of More Than Profit. Make sure to check out the article by Laura linked in our show notes that has some great tips for setting out to define your financial plan. If nothing else, take at least one step today to better align your own capital with who you are and what you desire to see in the world. It's never too early or too late to develop a plan. To stay up to date with More Than Profit, make sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And while you're there, drop us a review so others can find us as well. Don't forget to check out our new website at morethanprofit.fm, where we have additional content and past episodes. And we'll be posting some exciting news about upcoming live More Than Profit events. You can also learn more about what's ahead by following us on Twitter at listen_MTP. More Than Profit is a production of Access Ventures and is hosted by Bryce Butler and Brian McKay. Our executive producer is Crystal Escobar, and our associate producer is Bryn McKay. Audio production assistance is provided by Resonate Recording. Our theme song today was No Man's Land by Slapstorm. I'm Bryn McKay, and you've been listening to More Than Profit.